Hey everybody, this is Andrew from Leadhype, Facebook group Codimo Closers. I'm happy to have with us today Mr. Chris Dancy. Maybe if you give a quick introduction of who you are, our viewers may or may not know you already.
Well, they probably don't know me. I'm kind of a geek, but my name's Chris Dancy. If you go to Google right now, or if you're listening to this, wait till you pull over the car and you type in 2 words, most connected, I'll come right up. Long story short, 12 years ago, I turned 40 years old. I was miserable, 320 pounds, 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I had a lot going on, but I was super successful. But like my life was falling apart. And I came up with this crazy idea that every time I touch a piece of software or a piece of hardware or anything to do with technology, a copy of what I did should be saved someplace offline, kind of like a Wikipedia of my life. And between 2008 2012, I did this. Nobody knew. It was one of like these things. In 2012, somebody at a conference saw what I was doing. He wrote for Wired magazine, and the rest is Christery.
So you're a systems guy essentially.
Yeah, I'm a total systems guy. I'm a total gearhead. So, strangely enough, I got my start. So, graduated high school in '87. My parents said computers will never catch on, so they would not even let me go to university for computers. They wanted me to go for accounting. But I got my first computer in '79. All through the '80s, I kept a computer in my room. All my big spreadsheet junkie during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then early '90s, got a job right out of school, working for a company that turned into WebMD. It was called Medical Manager, but then left there and joined, at that time, one of the biggest CRMs in the world called Goldmine. And Goldmine was just a piece of DOS and by them Windows software that did CRM, and then they had a companion product called Heat, which was a help desk. So the CRM and the help desk worked together. At the time it was radical. No one even knew really what a CRM or a help desk was. And shoot, I did that from '97 until technically you couldn't say help desk and CRM by 2012 when I left the business, but that's what they were at their core. They were just cloud-based CRMs, but they had much more elaborate names like enterprise management software, which
ERPs.
is just, which is just bullshit. It's a help desk and a CRM.
Yeah. So what type of what magnitude, what type of systems have you worked on?
Oh, wow. Professionally, I mean, before I went out on my own, I had done systems for, you name it. Everyone from the FAA. I was at the FAA on 9/11. So when they were bringing down the planes, I was installing their CRM.
Wow.
It was a big deal. I was at the State Department the week after because after 9/11, you couldn't fly. So the planes are grounded forever. And I was in DC. So, you really couldn't get out of DC. Oh my gosh, crazy ones like Golden Corral, back in the day, their whole CRM and help desk ran on stuff I did. FTD, the florist. There's so many big name companies that today, Waffle House, and the really crazy thing about Waffle House is a FEMA recognized emergency provider. So if the lights at Waffle House are ever out, it's serious, So it was, I don't know. I had the most amazing career from the early '90s until 2012 when I started doing my own thing, all doing the kind of stuff you guys do every day.
So why do you think that they chose you?
Back at that time, I was picked often. If I'm being honest, I think just because I just saw data differently,
Okay.
Someone could kind of explain their business to me. And, I would do the normal stuff like, okay, you need this and this, but then I would just go, okay, but what are we trying to do here? Is it to get more calls or more successful sales? Because there's the old saying, we don't know how to measure what we care about, so we care about what we measure. Okay. And so many systems are built to just measure things that we don't ultimately care about because we can, and saying, well, let's figure out what you actually care about and measure that. I think at the end of the day, people at that time would tell you, I just got shit done, GSD.
Okay.
But more than that, I thought provocatively about database.
Okay.
And it sounds too surreal actually to say that out loud, but that's probably what it was.
Okay. Well, I'm a bit obsessed with managing chaos. I think that's really what it comes to. I actually had a conversation today about someone that I thought was really good at managing chaos. So So it all connects the data and making sure
Yeah.
everything's where it should be. So
Yeah.
I guess so you work on big level CRMs where there's a lot of stuff going on and trying to make it, fit all together. Um, so this industry, like you said, has been around since the 90s.
I mean, I'm sure CRMs in one form or another have been around even longer. I mean, if I'm being
Computer,
really old,
computer, computer based.
yeah, I mean, if I'm being really old school, I wrote a book a couple years ago called Don't
Hmm.
Unplug, and the beginning of the book, I actually talk about how I got started, and
Hmm.
the year was 1979. My
Hmm.
father sold cars at Joe Grimm Ford
Okay.
in Sykesville, Maryland,
Okay.
and I was in 1979. I was 11,
Okay.
and my uncle gave him a Tandy, and I can't remember it was what the spreadsheet software was, but at 11 years old, I went down there and I put he had a filing cabinet full of customers,
Okay.
and I put all of his customers in the Tandy in 1979, and the entire dealership was blown away because suddenly he didn't have to like get up from his desk and like find a folder and everything was there. Now we didn't have document
When you
scanning, all
when
that
you were
kind of.
11.
When I was 11,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
actually it's how we start the book. But
Yeah.
like to me, it was just normal. I mean, so I went from doing that to on the weekends he would bring the computer home, and
Uh-huh.
I would log all the records and tapes that I bought at the mall.
Hmm.
So I had this massive database, and the record tapes would be the artist, the title, and the tracks, and then the track times, and then I also had and this was the thing that always impressed my parents was I had a field for feeling. So I'd be able to
Okay.
sort by feeling. So at night, I asked my mom how she was feeling, and then I'd pick music to play based on her feeling. And we had it on the screen, but we also had a book. And sometimes she would
Okay.
just point to what she wanted in the book. But I was a really fucking strange kid. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I always saw technology as an extension of how we felt inside. So when you say managing chaos, like, yeah, of course.
Hmm. That's no, it's really interesting. I never thought of
By the way,
having
I've never told that story out loud
oh
ever.
no, that's really interesting. Music by I wonder if in the future they could have a technology that senses your mood and plays music.
Well, interesting. I mean, I've done work with Spotify. I mean,
Okay.
the streaming company. I've done work with them, and I mean, most of their music is by mood anyway.
Okay.
A lot of their technology that senses motion and location and just the passive stuff you can just measure without even trying. You just the
Okay.
ambient light in the room. I mean, a lot of people will notice that their Spotify, if they use Spotify, will
Mhm.
recommend all sorts of music. Like, how the hell does it know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I should have told them about my database from the 79 now that I think about it, but it doesn't matter.
So
I give
so
good search.
so now that's your beginning. You're started off,
Yeah.
building these spreadsheets, organizing everything that seems chaotic.
Yeah.
And now let's use that as an example, right? You're 11 years old using a spreadsheet of all the cars to manage a small to medium sized business, right? Back in
Yeah.
the back in you said 79.
1979, yeah. Yeah.
So nowadays, if we talk about present day CRMs, there's all sorts of tools that are supposed to be great for that. You have everything from HubSpot to
Yeah.
Pipedrive to Salesforce
Yeah.
and everything like that. And still today, from 1979 to 2020,
That's 50.
decades,
Yeah, 40 years.
40 years later, there are
Uh,
still people using spreadsheets because they're so confused on how to set up a proper CRM for their business.
yeah, I mean, obviously, because I mean, a spreadsheet is two-dimensional and a CRM is three-dimensional.
Hmm.
Spreadsheets. I think people love spreadsheets because they can think linearly. Like it's so much easier. But the minute you introduce CRM, you're introducing relationships. Now you can do relationships in spreadsheets, but not like you can in CRM. But
Yeah.
I think today's CRMs really struggle with overkill. They try to do so many things.
Hmm.
I think that's the challenge with them. A good spreadsheet will save your life. You don't need much more than
Hmm.
that. And like you and I, like I talked to you once on the phone, and I said, the best CRM is the one you use. So,
Hmm. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've
it is
built
crazy.
dozens of CRMs that I've and spent hours and dozens and hundreds of hours on CRMs that I've
Yeah.
never used before. There,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are so many features that you there's so much to do. I created so much future work for myself. I never
I
used it.
mean, How many of us had fathers that, toiled in the garage on vehicles they never drove? Or, I mean, people today in our generation, and some people from my generation, not as many as people from your generation. I mean, there's nothing different about us. We just toil and tinker differently. It's just like people who are CRM junkies, they'll rule the world. At the end of the day, if you know how to reach someone and organize who they are, like, I don't know, there's not much difference between that and Tinder. I mean, it's just like Tinder just has a better interface.
So you're a tinkerer. So
I'm totally a
so
tinkerer.
so how did you go from? I'm assuming that the majority of the viewers have not seen your current. I don't even know what to call it. You call it life stack. It's a life management system. How did you go from using a spreadsheet when you were 11 to having your life currently organized in a three-dimensional system? It almost seems
I
four-dimensional.
had to switch earbuds on you. Hold on one second, Andrew.
Sure.
Give me 1 second. Okay, you're
Yep.
back.
Hey.
Too many back-to-back meetings.
I was talking about you tinkering so much that you created your own life management system that monitors and helps you live life in a better at a better level.
I mean, that was certainly the goal when I started developing the system. At this point in my life, I mean, I've been measuring and monitoring a lot of data throughout my life, and when I thought about like how you would structure, for lack of a better term, what you called a life management system, it was really about understanding, the fundamentals of, what do you need to get out of that system, and a lot of that started with just thinking about how my life was related. So I have a handy dandy little chart I show people all the time, and the chart really gives you an overview of all the different pieces of my life. Before we go into the chart, let's just unpack it real slow. So at the beginning of the day, like when you get out of life, when you get out of bed, the one thing you have in your life is you, right? You're an entity. Your spouse is entity, your pets are entities, your business you run is an entity, and everything connects to that entity, right? So for me, I didn't want to do the traditional thing where I just said, okay, what are my tasks and who are my customers? I didn't want my life management system really function that way. So I just said, okay, go ahead.
So the life management system is more than the 30,000 foot view of it. Is that it's your life plus a business CRM is what you tried to incorporate.
Yeah, because to me, the life management system had to be a CRM on steroids, right? And a CRM does a really good job of following up. And there's a lot of like, personal CRMs. There's all sorts of things, but there's nothing really to manage your whole encompassing life. And your whole encompassing life is more than just your financial relationships, whether they be customers or bills, right? It's also requests coming in for everything from can I borrow a cup of sugar to do you want to have sex, right? The last part maybe is a bridge too far. But I had to look at it holistically. So, if you think about the root of a CRM, I mean, the one thing every CRM has to have is who are you, right? Because who are you calling out to the world? I mean, that's before you even need customers, you need a person to call them.
Yes.
Right. Most people don't even think about the order of a CRM, and that always just blows my mind. I'm like, okay, like, but where are you in this whole system? And then what do you do for it, right? So that's where I started with myself. And I think when you think about getting started, I always tell people, like, where would you go right now in your life if you had to get all the important information about you at this moment? Like, where would you look? Would you look in your contacts, like on your computer? It's hard. So my life management system was really about then incorporating like a record for me, and then going a bit further and saying, okay, before I add anything else on top of it, what types of things do I value? And that was kind of important to me because I think if you think about a traditional CRM, if you can tag, out calls, and you can tag inbound calls, all these other types of things. But at the end of the day, and you can tag them up to certain product lines or, hand them off and give them all sorts of statuses. But at the end of the day, if you're not saying you're doing it for a reason, you're just mechanical. So like I went ahead then and I can show you some of this deep down, but I went ahead then and looked at like all the things that I kind of value. And then from there, I started to get into personally and professionally, because it's just at this point, it's still about defining my view out to the world in this life management system. It's like, what are the tasks I have to do, like CRM, your follow-ups and things like that? What are the projects? What are the big groups of bigger tasks, and how do they roll up to the groups of projects, roll up to bigger goals? And then it gets into more traditional stuff we know from a CRM, like an inbox coming in, a journaling function. So every time you reach out or someone reaches in, it comes into the inbox, and a journal entry is created. Then you get into all the stuff you probably used to with CRMs, like the people you're calling and the orgs you're working with, because this is the barrier in which your life goes from you on your deathbed to like you and your working days to like you and how you interface with the rest of the world. And to your point earlier, that's actually when I start to get into, then you can worry about, okay, you've got accounts, whether they be checking accounts, credit cards, you've got bills, you've got documents, you've got all the transactions that make up your life. And then you've got all the things you do with those resources, the things you buy, assets, the places you put them, places, the apps that manage all of that. And it's really interesting because apps really have become an asset class unto themselves, because so many apps manage our digital life, and we don't talk about those. We're like, apps are an asset class unto themselves, because a lot of your being is inside applications. So they're digital safe deposit boxes. Right? So they need to be managed that way, because there's certain assets that if something happens to you, unlike the chair your spouse can see, they need to be able to get into those systems. And then sitting on top of those assets, you've got your health, mental, physical, spiritual, all that kind of shit, visits to doctors, prescriptions, all of those types of things. But remember, all of this digital stuff lives on top of all of this other stuff. And then from there, you get into what you and I would basically call our traditional CRM, which is our out-facing transactions to how we make money, the products in which those things are based on, the marketing efforts that foster those events. And then to me, references is a really important part of what I do. So there's an entire separate routine and table for that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And then all of that sits together, and instead of that view, it all sits together in this view where I can see those same tables and those same routines by function. So the assets and liabilities in my life, the revenue, the record keeping, the planning, and then the two kind of doing something, being something. So people asking me for stuff in my inbox, things I have to do, and then journal everything that's happening. Think of journal as almost like an audit or a log, and then timeline, the big things that happen. And they all just sit inside a database. And this is the start of it. So it's me and all of my pets, my spouse, my businesses. Then, like I said, you've got my values, and each of those values then are tied up.
You love these images.
I do
the
love
emojis.
The images. I just think it's when you can see something, and you can visually imprint on it. Like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like how I think about these things, and then you just go right down the list to my CRM. Right? If I just go in here and look at all my customers, it looks a lot like somebody else's regular CRM, but I have all these views into the data. So if I come over here and say all customers, current, and I go ahead and make this actual size. See some talks I've got coming up for the National Safety Council. I'm doing a meeting and for a group of Brazilians coming up. And then when I just bring up one of these things, it's very easy. I can pull it up, look at the record. I can see the event. I can see all the details on the event, any tasks to do with the event, all the times I've touched that event, who the event's for, any documents, signed contracts, and just, again, tag the whole thing to the rest of my life.
Could we talk about this real quick?
Sure.
So you say in this one
it's your
record,
show.
Yeah. No, well, it's if I wasn't, you have so much going on. It's mind-boggling how organized it is. Right.
I'll try to go slower. I sometimes go too fast.
It's okay.
I'll try
so inside of that one record, the Brazilian speech that you have, right?
Yeah.
This is everything to do with that Brazilian speech inside of one record, essentially.
Absolutely. So if I wanted to, I could just click on Brazil, like the country, and then I could come down here and see all the cities in Brazil. But more importantly, I can see every engagement I've ever had in Brazil.
Okay.
So every record is a view into another view.
So
So for
they're
example,
all relationships fields. They're
every
related to each
single
other.
every single thing. So if I open up the task for Brazil,
Hmm.
the task is assigned to the entity. You remember the entity? That was me.
Hmm.
And that entity is tied to certain money,
Hmm.
and that money is tied to certain assets. So literally, I can go from my Oculus Rift out to this
Hmm.
customer in Brazil. It sounds weird, but like, it doesn't matter if it's a credit card in my wallet or the watch on my arm. I can show you how it's related to this talk.
Okay. And so for me, right? If this is me, and I have this talk, you have tasks associated with it. How
Yep.
how do you structure when to do those tasks? How
Oh,
is that all set up?
yeah. So there's an engagement routine. So when someone comes into the system, where
Hmm.
they follow funnels, right? So
Okay.
first, everyone gets a class that something has to be done. Then they get a status, and the status has, as you can see, an order to it. So
Okay.
contacted on hold, biz
So
dev, cold call. Go ahead.
this is a typical flow, like a pipeline that you
It's
would see
completely,
in a typical
yeah.
CRM.
Yeah, so there's a status to the overall engagement,
Hmm.
but then there's a sales stage. So the
Okay.
stage is also the same thing: prospecting, contacted,
Hmm.
contacted, negotiation, schedule event, promote on social, book
Hmm.
the travel, create the presentation, deliver the event, send a thank you or gift, send them an invoice, follow up for recommendation, 1 month, 3 months, 1 year,
Hmm.
archive and promote, archive and close. So the archive and promotes are things like tier one media, the big things like BBC, the
Hmm.
Atlantic, just anything big that I've been a part of, and
Hmm.
those things are then recycled out in my channels as kind of promotion for who I am.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
No, it does. It does. It's
Okay.
very, 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 very organized. More way 100 times more organized than I am.
Well, I mean, these are my customers, so that's really, it's super important to me that they have uh, just a ridiculous easy view. So, for example, we take this government symposium talk that I'm doing. This was the information they got sent over to them. They sent me 14 emails in the last 3 weeks, and that,
Okay.
my system generates a report back to them so they can see exactly what I'm doing for them very simply.
So and how does it send it back to them through email?
Yep, it's all
Okay.
automated, and there's also a portal for my customers to go to where they can engage with me and upload documents or see where they are in the
Hmm.
timeline of things to be done.
One of my friends, Caleb, would love. He's obsessed with creating a perfect portal, and here you have it all inside of Airtable.
I have some really crazy portal stuff. I'd love to show you it sometime. I have one portal that just when I need to, uh, when I just like if I don't want to jump in Airtable and I need to get in here. Uh, so I have two different portals. One portal is a place where I can do things, and one portal is
Hmm.
a place where I can see things. So
Hmm.
the do things portal is the GSD, and that's where I come in here and create a journal entry to deal with someone, a task,
Hmm.
an inbox entry, deal with people, upload documents, upload new
Hmm.
assets, any type of stuff. I'm not feeling well, a health incident form.
Hmm.
But then I have a whole nother portal I can't open up because it's very sensitive, but it
Okay.
has where everything is at any time, if that makes
Okay.
sense. Yeah.
It does. So this is essentially a web form to enter the data into the system.
Exactly. So let me give you a better example of the web form because I think
So
you'll start to see the
I
power.
guess what I'm asking is how so you have all this information and you have to get it into the system. And
I have to get in
and
the system. Yeah.
that's one of my biggest challenges is it's the barrier of how long it takes me to get something into a system. I know previously you said something that you created an app that you have web forms like this to make everything easy to get into to log it essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like this. I'll talk about how things get into a system in just a
Hmm.
moment. But like,
Hmm.
this is a portal for my CPA. I have another one for my lawyer. I have one for
Hmm.
all the people who do things at my house. So they come in and they leave me messages, and I leave them messages. So the
Okay.
people who work with me do is just as much work in my system as I do. So my CPA always needs my bank statements. She always needs to give me transactions to review. She always needs to leave me, but she always forgets that I answer her questions. So this portal
Okay.
keeps her accountable.
Okay.
So I think when you think about, like you said, it's a really common challenge that you mentioned, and that's like, how do you get stuff in your system?
Yes.
You know, for so many people, I think it starts out a little bit cart before the horse. So what they try to do is they try to like automate so much stuff that suddenly their
Yes.
system is full of crap. And I think
Uh-huh.
you have to you have to really be deliberate when you think about your system and how information gets in there. I
Hmm.
often use the analogy of a race car. Like, a lot of people think about an autonomous race car, but they don't think about the wheels. And then they don't
Hmm.
think about how the wheels connect to a steering wheel and how the steering
Hmm.
wheel connects to a dashboard and the dashboard connects, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's this whole system. For me, when I'm thinking about how my information gets into my application,
Hmm.
you know, I look at it this way. So like, a lot of the information that comes in my system goes in via just plain old browser, right? So when I think about how
Okay.
much I use my system, I'd say 90% of my time just goes in through the web browser portal.
Okay.
Now there's an app for it, but I don't use it.
Hmm.
20% of my data does come in through some form of automation, whether someone
Hmm.
emails me or schedules an appointment with me or comes through my website, whether it be my CPA or a new customer.
Hmm.
How I interact with that, though, then is like embeds. So now that I know that like 90%, you know, or 60% of my data comes from the web and
Hmm.
20% of it comes from here, how I interact with is different. So the web form is one way I can interact with it. I also
Hmm.
have shortcuts all over my phone. So I
Okay.
could just speak to Siri. I could tell Siri to log a journal, log a task, log a
Okay.
follow up for a customer.
Okay.
I could just talk to the system if I need to, and then those things allow me then to do kind of the visualization. So I can
Hmm.
start to visualize the numbers in dashboards, which are then represented out on the web. So
Hmm.
I can see where processes and or my life is. I mean, right down to where I was in grade school and what was going on that day.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's a long period of recording the
I had
data.
a lot of data. I had a lot of data. One of my
So
projects in 2010 was I went back because of Zillow. I went back and got every single house I ever lived in from the time I was born to now, the square
okay.
footage, where it was, what the weather was in that area,
Okay.
um, the housing prices, the schools, the socioeconomic factors, and created a
Hmm.
database of it. And then went back and kind of removed that for a minute and just went back and thought about my feelings growing up in these
Okay.
different houses, and then tried to see if there was any correlation between where I live. So that's how I have that data. I mean,
Okay.
a lot of the data I have, you guys, anyone could have. You just need to take some
Hmm.
time to say and find yourself interesting, find your life interesting. Maybe not yourself.
So the biggest question at the end of the day, right, is now that the system's set up, you have to manually put, like you said, 20% is automated, 80% is manual. Is it worth it? A lot of people are going to
Absolutely,
be asking, is it worth it?
absolutely. I mean,
Can you give an
so
example of how how having that data organized has helped you in life?
yeah. So first of all, the only thing you really need automated are interactions, like, or journal entries. Like, everything else you should do should be deliberate, right? So like, if someone emails me or sends me a contract or sends me a
Mhm.
letter in the mail, you know, those the type. And it's interesting enough, the mail now is automated because you get a copy of the mail scanned by the post office, right? So that's all
Yes.
automated now.
Yeah.
Like, even like
Yeah. Yeah.
mail stuff is automated. But the deliberate stuff you do should be deliberate. So, for example,
Mhm.
could I all my bank statements, my transactions coming down, right?
Mhm.
That's all automatic. I don't worry about it. But
Mhm.
me tying my transactions to the specific asset that they were part of. For example, if I bought, you know, something new and expensive, okay,
Mhm.
so I buy it, right? That's all automated.
Mhm.
I bought it online. It comes into the system because there's an email. An
Mhm.
asset gets created automatically because I mark it as this is an asset, and information
Mhm.
gets extracted. That's all automatic, right? So that's not a whole
Yeah.
lot there. But then when it comes to like, okay, now here's 90 transactions from the last month from your bank that automatically downloaded. Do you want them to
Mhm.
automatically try to figure out where they belong? No. I just think it's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
it forces you to do the due diligence of,
Mhm.
right? So you might spend an hour a month like matching your transactions, but it forces you to do the due diligence of, okay, I bought this on this date. I'm going to set up a reminder because the
Mhm.
warranty is 12 months at 11 months and
Okay.
15 days to return it.
Okay.
So, I mean, you, by doing a little bit of heavy lifting, actually
Mhm.
infinitely never have to buy anything ever again.
Understood. Understood.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's just certain things, and we've all been there where like the
Mhm.
day after a warranty, something falls apart. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like, it's such a part
Or
of
you think
life.
you have, or you think you have time. You believe you
Yes.
have time when you really don't, which
For
happens to me
example,
all the time.
I've had situations where, well, and again, I have reminders. I get a monthly report called "Things Dying This Month," and they can be
Okay.
bills, all my subscriptions that are going to renew that are yearly. I get that's on that report, right? Because I don't want to be blindsided by a bill or a warranty or a customer. Nothing. Do not excite me. It freaks me the fuck out, right? Um, uh, but no, I had another good example of this is like when you're setting up bills, right? So yeah,
Okay.
your bills are pretty automatic; they come in. But I manually set my bills up because I want to keep track of when they're happening. But more importantly, I've had where providers will change what they're offering for the same price. I've had data companies say, hey, it's unlimited data, but only up to 20 gig. Well, I've got the
Okay.
screenshot from when I set up the service, and it doesn't say that, right?
Mhm.
I'm one of those people who saves the terms and conditions from the
Mhm.
day they sign up for something, not what they are the day you notice they're different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always tell people the one thing that, I loved what you said about chaos, but the one thing that will make life infinitely more better is the
Mhm.
weaponization of data. Like
Okay.
if you can
Well,
screenshot your way out of trouble, I've done this at jobs. I've done this. I mean, there is no place that a right amount of data hasn't saved my ass.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I wish I was. I wish I was there. I wish I was there.
Yeah. It's real simple. Every time you create a piece of data in your CRM or your own
Mhm.
life management system, think to yourself, can I use this in a court of law? And then go to town.
Okay.
I have a whole system in my system of shit that happens to me in the neighborhood that I use to fight the HOA every year with that
Okay.
they're not doing their job.
Okay.
It's called.
Has
Do you want to see it?
sure. Sure. Has that
It's
has that benefited you?
absolutely. I mean, the HOA hates me now. I mean, everyone in the neighborhood hates the HOA. The HOA
Okay.
hates me.
Okay.
It's
You're the
life
poster
is good.
child.
I'm the poster child of don't mess with me HOA. But if I go in here and I just jump over it, so remember that would be an interaction. So if I just go over to my journal table and I pull up journals by neighborhood drama, I could see it. So I could see what the neighborhood drama was, a picture of the person and or the drama.
Okay.
Uh, and then any type of actions or tasks that I take on the neighborhood drama, then I escalate that. And I actually send
What are
my
the
feelings
hearts?
and bio. So the hearts are tied to my feeling from the incident, but behind the
Okay.
hearts are actually the biological response. So if I was attacked by a dog, I send my heart rate and then sleep the night after I was attacked to them.
Okay.
Don't fuck with me. You're not ready for this jelly.
So,
But again, I think again, I mean, it looks like a lot, and it probably seems like a lot, and it is a lot. Let's be honest. But the reality is, like, what else are you gonna do? Like, you can
mhm,
only sleep so long. You can only do work so long.
mhm,
You can only exercise so much. At some point, you
mhm,
have to be interested in your life in a way that it helps. For my
mhm,
spouse, who's not organized like me, like
mhm,
to your point earlier, like name an example. There have been times where my spouse has been able to call up and follow up on something, and everything has been there, like who you need to call, what the next step was,
mhm,
what they told us they would do.
mhm.
So I just always find it ironic that businesses will record the calls for their safety and we don't. It's just like we have to stop being like we're victims to the world and start like turning the shit around.
So, I look at that system, right, and I wish I could just snap my fingers and have it for me. I feel like
Yeah,
if I had it, I would start playing with it because I'm a tinkerer
yeah,
also. So I'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
start tinkering, start using it, start logging stuff. I see myself getting into it, getting bored of it. You're not bored, but being lazy and not doing it, getting back into it again. But if
Yeah,
I think,
and then that happens to me. Sometimes I won't do bills one month, and I'll do 60 days worth of transaction matching at once. It just takes longer.
mhm,
But again, I mean, my mom used to sit around and flip through a big photo album.
mhm,
Every year at the end of the year, my mom and I in the 70s and 80s, she'd get a calendar from Hallmark because they gave them
mhm,
to you free when you bought something, and we copy the stuff out of the old year and into the new year. I don't
okay,
think what I'm doing is anything that radical. It just is with a different tool. I'm
then
doing the
why then
same
why
shit my parents did.
why why has the adoption rate been so behind? Why am I interviewing you about it? Why is there not a hundred other people I could interview doing the same thing as you?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think the answer is probably not as salacious or exciting as it needs to be. One, you'd have to be almost a data voyeur or like a data exhibitionist to do what I do, right? No one's going to, the people who do what I do, like I'd say 99% of them are not going to go on, write a book and go on TV and talk.
Mhm.
Most people are just not going to do it. It's just not, that's not their bag, right? This is their life. They consider it private. I don't consider this shit private. Like
Mhm.
to me, there's a difference between privacy and safety. I think the other thing, so that's the first real
Mhm.
reason why more people aren't doing it. I think they are, they just don't do this. But I think that the more provocative idea is we're just not incentivized as humans, as citizens of the United States, as citizens of the world, as people.
Mhm.
We're just not incentivized to care about ourselves. We're taught that it's if you take too many selfies, it's narcissistic. If you
Mhm.
balance your checkbook, you must be a miser and penny pincher. If
Mhm.
you keep your house clean, you must have OCD. We're taught
Mhm.
all these things that are just
Stigmas.
pathologically stigma. Yeah, it's just horrible.
Mhm.
And we're not taught kind of the value of having respect for yourself in a way that how you record yourself,
Mhm.
right? Press your shirt, but don't keep your wallet in order. Well, my father told me to keep my wallet in order, right? My money had to be facing a certain way, and the credit
Mhm.
cards had to be in a certain order, and my shirt had to be pressed, right?
Uh-huh.
So, but those types of values are really, I think they're going away, Andrew. I mean,
Mhm.
people just don't seem to be interested. Well, let's be honest, they're wildly interested, or else I wouldn't have a career. It's just it doesn't seem relevant.
Or
It's a
maybe
nice to have.
fascinated rather.
Right. Yeah. Because I used to have a friend tell me all the time when I would get upset, and like instead
Mhm.
of being frustrated, be fascinated. And that's a hard thing when someone's making you angry, and you're like, you have to
Mhm.
all of a sudden go, oh, how fascinating that you're a complete moron, and it's like, no, that's not fascinating at all. It makes me very angry.
Do you think that this having this system to control, I don't want to say control your life, but to organize your life has made you more money?
No, no, I think I've made more money when I did less maintenance. What it's done is made me more content.
What do you mean by that?
Um, Oh my goodness. I can make a lot of money and not log a damn thing because I
Mhm.
can literally just sell my bullshit all day long. Like people will sign up to talk to me all day long and pay money. So there's a certain amount of time that's excluded from my availability to the
Mhm.
world by just the fact that I'm interested in my own self. What I mean
Okay.
by that is made me more content is if I look at my life now in 2020 and my life in 2015,
Mhm.
for all in 2010, and you go back every 5 years, for all intended purposes, I'm fine. I'm in a majority of the population that I'm struggling through the pandemic because like my
Mhm.
income went from $500,000 a year to 20,000,
Mhm.
but I'm not falling apart.
Mhm.
I'd say more content because I've been rich
Mhm.
and I've been poor. Literally
Mhm.
lived in my car with my family
Mhm.
when we got tossed out in eighth grade, right before the whole ninth grade, the 11-year-old thing.
Mhm.
I've been, made lots of money and all this other kind of stuff. And I'll tell you right now, the only difference between the two is how you spend your time.
Okay.
And truly rich people seem to spend more of their time worrying about staying truly rich. And
Yeah.
truly content
Yeah.
people seem to spend most of their time worried about saying, like, truly just getting by. Just there is a lot of happiness in just getting by.
Mhm.
You know, the ugliness of just getting by comes when we start to say, well, I could do this or I could do that. And like, coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's just bullshit.
Mhm.
So could I make more money? Back to your question. Yeah, but I'm just so content. Like if I could make the same amount of money I'm now and just know what's going on, wake
Mhm.
up every single day knowing what I owe the world, what the world owes me, who I owe promises to be
Mhm.
able to quantify what I value in dollars, time, to be
Mhm.
able to literally see the people I love and the effect on their lives.
Mhm.
Why would you make any more money than $1 if that's the threshold? You wouldn't.
That's I actually was expecting the exact opposite answer. I'm definitely going
Oh,
to
really?
reflect on
Tell me
that.
what you're
Yeah.
expecting. Tell me what you're
No,
expecting.
my whole outlook and why I say my fascination, right? I like the to talk about the chaos. I feel because there's so much chaos, I'm unfocused, which loses me money. So
That's absolutely true. I mean, you're right in a large extent. I just want you to also understand that even if you were, okay, I'll just put it this way. I've got a saying I say all the time when I'm on stage is I never have met anyone who did anything with the time they saved. So even if you were organized, you wouldn't be any happier. It just like time is like a fiat currency. Like it's not backed up by anything real. Like you right now are time. Like what you're experiencing right now is time. Like the future you thought worried about is right now, right? It's like from yesterday. Like the good old days when there wasn't a pandemic. Well, that's now, right? There's like all these things that we're going through. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. But again, like I've been rich and I've been poor. I've been organized. Well, as I was gonna say, I've been unorganized, but I really have never been unorganized. No. I'd be lying. I'd be trying to just make you think I'm like normal.
Let me pivot on you a little bit.
Please.
Data. So you're gathering a whole bunch of data. What is the data that you're gathering? So far, we talked mostly about business tasks, personal stuff. The audience may or may not know that I've listened to your book, and you talked about sensors. So you have a lot of data coming into the system, and that stuff's mostly automated, except for feelings that you log, symptoms that you log. I remember you talking once about going to the doctor and you having a list of symptoms that you've had, so you could easily just show the doctor, these are my symptoms that I've had.
Yeah. My doctor follows me on Twitter, and I literally just share my health stats every now and then, and he literally gives me advice on Twitter. So, yeah, and again, I think it's really a dangerous slope because I think you need to be careful not to like also collect so much and organize so much you don't need people, because that's the other thing is like once people know they can access you through a dashboard, they don't want to talk to you. Right. So it's like, don't turn yourself into self-service checkout, right? Find a reason to have to talk to people. But no, for me, when I think about the actual data, I guess for lack of a better way to describe it, the thing that made me famous, right? It really falls into these 6 buckets. The first thing is, the first bucket is temporal. So everything has a time. And we know this just from CRMs. The second bucket is everything has a location. So if you have a location, but you don't have time, you're dead, right? After time and location, you have activity, right? So you have to be sometime, somewhere doing something. And something, when I say activity, it's very limited scope, right? It's standing, sitting, walking, running, any act of volition. So basically movement or lack of movement is that. Again, if you're sometime, somewhere, not doing anything, you're dead. While you're doing something at these 2 layers, you also have to be performing something. That's where I have behavior. So you're sitting, listening to music at home at 9 a.m. Okay. So again, if you're just sitting there and you're not doing anything, you're dead. So now you're listening to music, you're sitting there at home at 9 a.m. You have to have a biological fingerprint at that layer. So do you have a heart rate? If you don't have a heart rate and you're listening to, you can still be listening to music sitting there, but you're dead, right? And the last thing is there has to be an environmental layer around you, right? So you've got a heart rate, listening to music, sitting there at home at 9 a.m. But there's the oxygen is 2%. Well, you're dead, right? It's 100 below zero. You're dead, right? So these layers really stack, and it's really important when you think about every single moment in life is actually these layers just aligned. So when we think about them, you'd have them here like in a down group. So you've got time, things like the minutes on the hour, the time of the day. These are just very simple examples, date, location, activity, behavior. Well, then if you were to wrap that around and say, okay, now I've got the same sets of data, but across the top, right? So now you can say, okay, I've got minute and I've got this across the top. The minute you slap a chart on that, you start to see that what you really have is a complete way of organizing every single moment in your life. So if you say at certain calories burned at a certain time of day, you can send us a message. So Apple Watch does this thing where if you don't exercise by a certain point, it'll say, hey, you can still make it. Well, that's just using these 2 data points at an intersection. But what's really interesting, Andrew, is if you start to then say a third layer, so you have a certain activity at a certain location, at a certain biological single point, and they add a 4th point at a certain environment, you can literally tell someone what they're doing. So a
Okay.
lot of like the surveillance stuff that we talk about in the world comes from the intersection of two pieces of data. We
Mhm.
talked about Spotify music earlier. And where it
Mhm.
gets really exciting is you say, okay, if you understand that, you can collect that data. The next thing
Mhm.
you do is you can send that feedback back to someone. You can send it to their computer, you can
Mhm.
send it to their phone, you can send it to their watch. So one of the things I did early in 2012 was if I had spent too much money, my credit cards would automatically lock and I couldn't use them after 9 p.m.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's spending money at the bar after it's in my book. Spending money at the bar after 9 p.m.
Mhm.
Credit cards start working, right?
Okay.
But we know a lot of this because right now our watches will tell us stand up. They'll tell us
Mhm.
to go to bed. You can also send that message to the vehicle you're in. You
Mhm.
can send that message into the headset you're wearing.
Mhm.
But more provocatively, I send a lot of my messages
Mhm.
into the house around me. So my house itself is programmed to environmentally respond to either the
Mhm.
seasons or the behavioral signatures that I'm making. So if I've moving around too much and I've got a really busy schedule, the house is actually a little dimmer, the music's a little softer on a different channel, the humidifiers are cut back, and the diffusers are actually on a different scent.
Okay.
So, messaging to our face doesn't have to be in the form of when something happens, right? This is all important. You can literally not have a screen and send messages to yourself in the world.
Mhm.
And the most provocative way to do this is skip all the technology and just have whatever that message is sent to someone like your spouse.
Mhm.
So, the system could message your friends if you haven't heard from them in a while. Think about a
Mhm.
CRM that would understand if your customer is having a bad day and tell you to reach out to them or not reach out to them, right?
Mhm.
So, what I really try to strive with people is, you know, we need to fundamentally rethink about how we think about each other and
Mhm.
connecting. And I think CRMs give us a great way to do that because, if last touch is an email, you're a pretty
Mhm.
bad cyborg.
So all that, you now have all this data,
Mm.
your heart rate at the time of day. You personally
Noise
log
levels, yep, the whole
noise
stack, yep.
levels. You manually log the food that you ate during the day, and I want to take it a step further
I
into the
mean,
future,
I can
and,
you can talk to it now. I can literally tell my phone to log the food. I couldn't do
which is
that
so
2
much
years ago.
faster, which is so
Yeah,
much
yeah, yeah,
faster than all this manual logging,
yeah.
and so you're building this database, right? Like my whole thing, and what's so fascinating to me about collecting the data that you're collecting on yourself is the what it can do for humanity. For
Mm,
example, if we're talking about simply pharmaceutical, right? You're sick, so you take a new medication, or you have
mm,
a mental health medication for depression or anxiety or something like that. You take this pill, and you could tell by your watch. It tells you your heart
yeah,
rate's going up, your sleep,
yeah,
because you have a sensor next to your bed that tells you how much you
yeah,
sleep, how good of a
yeah,
sleep night's sleep you had. Basically,
yeah,
you could tell the side effects or if it's working.
yeah, yeah,
And that data is so powerful to build, powerful, medicine for ourselves. And you could even counteract it by taking a vitamin with this pill makes you sleep better at night, or
yeah,
taking melatonin with this pill at this exact hour,
yeah.
with
Or
a
knowing
reminder on
knowing
your
you're going to start
watch.
on, or knowing you're going to start on chemotherapy in 2 weeks for whatever reason, and
Mhm.
actually environmentally adapting your house so that you'll start to actually have the rough days are actually more set up. I mean, there are so many things you can do to your point in the future with this. The problem, I think, and the real challenge is this is, you know, uh, from a scientific point of view,
Mhm.
data needs to be, in their words, validated. Also needs to be controlled and studied, and you need to have
Mhm.
a control group and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
there's no real need yet from the bigger organizations. And I've done a lot of work for big pharma.
Mhm.
I was at Bayer Pharmaceuticals in Switzerland when the pandemic hit. I was in Russia for an event, Bayer, and I can't
Mhm.
remember, someplace in Austria. I was on a mountainside doing another thing. So they're moving that way. I think it's going to take something very radical in the next 20 years, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I have my own hunch of what it'll be, um,
Okay.
but I think when that happens, suddenly everyone will have an opportunity to at least opt in to their passive data being available to governments and or companies. By the
Mhm.
way, this is already happening. We don't have to wait for the future in China.
Yeah.
So if you're in China, they
Social
have a
credit
social credit
scores.
system. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's behavior based, it's biological based now with the COVID and the pandemic.
Mhm.
So again, you've got behavioral biological, and environmental. Those are kind of the three horsemen of the data apocalypse. And behavioral you can get from just spending, music taste, social media things. Biological you get from a lot from your phone. You just you get simple things like sleep and steps at a very high level. I have an app called Our Balance which does a lot of this. And then environmental. I mean, a lot of people often skip the environmental stuff, Andrew, and it's the easiest data to collect, and it's the most impactful on your life. I always tell people when they say, like, what's the one piece of smart tech I could get tomorrow to make my life amazing? I say Wi-Fi bulbs. It sounds dumb, but a light bulb that you can change the color of makes all the difference in the world. Let me give you an example. Alexa, turn off Showtime. I'm going to get dark for a minute. So just like if I disappear, now I'm like a seance. Alexa, make the lights orange. Give her a second. So now we're orange. Alexa, make the lights blue. now we're blue. Alexa, turn on Showtime. So why I say that is when we're thinking about our environment, subtle changes that are really imperceptible to our mood, whether it be the music we're listening to, if I tell her to play a certain song right now or a certain playlist, to the lighting, to even the fan that's under my desk that comes on if I start to move around too much. Those things, I call it Big Mother, not Big Brother, right? Those types of things are such powerful mood enhancers and ways to trick our brain into giving us a level of autonomy and comfort that we just normally don't have. So yes, I would say get an Apple Watch. Yes, I would say sign up for Airtable. Right? Use Andrew's affiliate link. I'll send it to him after this, and you can click on it, and I'll get a little stipend. And but at the end of the day, I'd say if you want the coolest, fastest, cheapest thing you could do, a Wi-Fi smart bulb, just because you can program it to slightly change colors, come on, come off, notice when you're in the room, notice when you're not, you can talk to it. It's, there's a reason God made light first. Look at you.
Yeah, that's no, you have so many points and they're so clear to you. It boggles me. You have this. I like to think that I haven't met many people that have well thought out reasonings and logics as you, and I find it I have to sit here and reflect on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I used to actually think about this stuff, but like now it just makes sense. I don't know if even that makes sense, but like I just understand. I don't know. I sometimes think I must be the first monkey.
After using it though. After using it,
yeah. I don't understand stuff until I actually play with it. And then once I play with it, I start to see it. So for example, like in my book, I talked about like, when I first got on Facebook, I loved it. And I was always doing selfies and all the other shit you do when you're on Facebook.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, I understood what Facebook was for me. Facebook was a way for me to DVR my relationships.
Okay.
And I didn't like that because what I found was like people I was friends with on Facebook, I talked to less. I reached out to less. I mean, I occasionally would like their post or leave a comment or something, but I stopped being friends with them. I started treating them like a newspaper.
Yeah.
And that to me was like a really big thing in 2012. I was like, I don't like what Facebook makes me do. Now, people use Facebook successfully all the time. I love people who love Facebook. I get it. I'm not putting Facebook down. For me, I can't use Facebook.
Yeah.
I can't use it. I only am attracted to and want to interact with the shit that's popular. I only want to reshare the stuff that I think makes me look smart. Right. So like I really had to start going, okay, what the hell am I doing to myself here?
Yeah.
Right? But it's hard again, like you said, because until you use it, you don't know. So
yeah,
we used to call that function life. Just do it.
I need to you challenged me here. I think I need to get some smart lights.
Yeah. I mean, dude, you would so love them. They're so much fun. I don't know. Even if you got like a really dumb one that you could just manually do from your phone without even talking. I mean, it is so life affirming, for, I think nowadays for like 99 for like the smallest, I think the smallest Alexa is actually $15 now. It just plugs into the outlet on the wall.
Yeah.
And then a smart light is like $40. Dude, so what is that? 40 and 15 for $60, less than a meal in some restaurants. Like you can like do this really cool stuff. I don't know. It sounds wacky, but you would love it.
No, I'm sure I would. I'm sure I would. And I'm sure you track the data too. So
of course.
So
Of
you've
course.
proven to yourself visually that it helps you.
Yeah. And the other nice thing is, we also have smart lighting on the outside of the house.
Hmm.
So, we can do interesting things. When there's a full moon, our outside lighting actually goes into this full white mode when there's a
Hmm.
new moon. So we try to teach the kids in the neighborhood about astronomy. When Mars is
Okay.
visible, our house lights up red.
Okay.
We, I mean, I just don't think there's not an education opportunity we should pass up if we have
Mhm.
access to being connected to technology.
So I'm sure every viewer on here is saying, I love to snap my fingers too. Call you on your cell phone and have you come into my life and have like a
Like
makeover,
Genie,
a digital,
like I Dream of Genie. Yeah.
a digital
Oh,
makeover.
like extreme digital makeover. We should
Yeah,
do that show,
extreme.
Andrew,
Yeah.
where we go someplace in the world. Actually, I got asked once to do a show like that. I can't remember if it was for Lifetime or something else like that. It wasn't called that, but it was something thing where I went in and cleaned up someone's digital life. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
So,
Marie Kondo. Yeah.
so,
Tidy.
so, so do you have any plans in the future of giving people extreme digital makeovers?
Yeah. It's funny. I swore to myself I would not ever get into the business of being an influencer, not because influencers and consultants don't have a role. They're very
Hmm.
important. But at the end of the day, I just can't scale, right? It's like if I do these one-off things for people all the time, it gets to be like it's just not helpful to anyone. There's a couple things I'd like to do in the future. So I just started taking on a couple projects recently that involve scaling large-scale no-code personal data solutions. I have the
Okay.
one I showed you that'll be coming out soon. Everyone always asks me when. I thought it'd be out by now, but I'm very particular about making sure that your experience when you use it is simple. But I know people just want to
Perfectionist.
like, yeah, just give it to me ugly, and I'll tinker. But then you'll hate me, so it's fine. But no, the other thing that I would love to do in the future, and if any of your listeners are listening, is I'd love to start hosting like either weekly or biweekly or
Mhm.
monthly kind of get-togethers, kind of like powwows,
Okay.
where we're all in a big Zoom or something, and we have an exercise and we unpack some piece of data and we talk about what it would mean.
Okay.
So almost like data boot camps,
Okay.
something I would love to do that, but like, yeah, people reach out to me all the time and say, "Can you personally help me?" I say, "Well, first let's chat and then talk to them and kind of find out." Because you'd be surprised how many problems you can solve with just a phone call.
Okay.
Like you don't need a whole consulting gig. Like most people, at this one guy I called me, he goes, "Hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you just, give me, and he was in Austin, Texas or something. This is
Mhm.
recently, and I said, no, it's just give me a call. He goes, right now, it's like, that's how the phone works. So yeah, just give me a call. And it's like, I had to tell people like pretend it's 1990 and like go wild. Um, and and I talked to the guy literally, he had a very simple database with
Mhm.
pretty simple problems. He just needed something called a roll-up function, which just pulled two pieces of data
Mhm.
together and he did make something searchable. And he spent weeks doing this. Oh my God, you saved me weeks. And I thought this would take forever. And because he'd
Uh-huh.
gone to some consultants and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I know if anyone's listening and they have a quick question, I'm on Facebook under like facebook.com/most connected. Twitter is under Chris Dancy. And then my website is the email. I think Andrew found me there.
Mhm.
I mean, I am really accessible, but people just don't know how to use the damn phone anymore.
So what if they're interested, I know that you have one book out already. You have another book coming out in the future. What do you
Yeah.
have going on?
So I've got the book now, Don't Unplug. I have an app called Our Balance, and I tell everyone it's a free app. And what I like about what we designed with Our Balance is it's completely anonymous. So
Mhm.
what I mean by that is all the data collection is done on the edge of the phone, so you don't have to worry about sending any of your data back to us. So if you see the little number 8 up there,
Mhm.
what it does is it automatically in the background, you don't create an account, you don't do anything. It
Mhm.
logs how much time you're working, even
Okay.
if you're at home, how much time you're sleeping. So you can see my sleep is purple. I've
Mhm.
been slacking off a little bit. Being social, so like getting out of the
Okay.
house and doing something, it's important during the pandemic while still being safe. And then being active, and that's the yellow, that's active. And it gives you little recommendations. But what's really cool about this is you can then sign up to a group or a team. So for instance, I can see right there, probably that
Okay.
says bears and cats. That's my family is at a 7, but my company, the employees are at a 5.
Mhm.
So you can see my employees are not being active. They're definitely
Okay.
not leaving the house and they are not sleeping, right? The green, the purple, and red.
Yeah.
So that's called Our Balance. And again, it's a great way for you to monitor the people that you love without asking to see their data. It's a great for them to share their data without like giving you access to the life because it's all anonymized. You don't know whose data makes up that total score. So that's one thing. I'm on an app, another program that you can find me on if you want to check it out. It's called Ulu, which is ULOOO, and I'll send you links to all this, Andrew.
Okay.
But I actually do mentoring on there now, so people can sign up for coaching. I'm supporting the app platform, so I actually am doing some specific coaching sessions. I think it's like $40 or something like that for half an hour. But they're a really great company. They've got people who want to get together and learn everything from meditation to productivity. They don't have a CRM part yet, but I'm sure one of your users might want to join and do that. But what I like about it is like, there's no place for us as humans to just say, where do I buy a habit? Like, there's no place to do that. Like, we have to download an app and watch a bunch of videos, all this other kind of shit. And I just think mentoring and coaching is really a great way to do that. So Ulu's an app, a company that they gave me some shares. You know, they don't make a lot of money, so it's not like I'm like, literally, I think I've paid them more than I've gotten from them. But again, I want to support those people. And of course, you can always find me just in the regular social sphere. But like, if you really want to work with me, probably Ulu would be best, or my website. And then if you really want to like blow your own mind, check out Our Balance, the app, Our Balance.
All right. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure. You know, every time I'm going to change my word to fascinated now. You fascinate me more every time that we talk, and inspired to be like you. One day I will have that system.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I'm excited to see the video when it's done. You'll have to invite me to your group. It's a closed group. I don't know if I qualify. I'll have to pull out my 1990 CRM credentials.
All right. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you stay well.
Thank you, Andrew. You too.
Take care.